everyone. Welcome to my session, Take 5, Engaging Entries into Writing Without the Weight of Assessments. I am your facilitator, Dr. Lois Barker. Some of you might know me on Twitter as using the handle @lit_bark. Thank you for joining me on a Saturday. So far, we've had an amazing opening keynote with Donna Lynn Miller and amazing sessions in between. And I hope you're going to stick around to the end with Dr. Sonia for her closing keynotes. I know it's just going to be amazing. This session is really a light session. We're just going to dive in. I'm just going to walk you through 5 quick entries into writing, 5 simple strategies that you can take with you and implement in your classrooms. You might be an instructional coach and work strictly with teachers. It works there. You might be a parent facilitating at-home learning, regardless of your instructional situation. These strategies are fun and I think pretty easy to dive into. But before we begin, I want us to take a moment to kind of ground ourselves, relax. I know the school year has already started, but it's been pretty heavy for some people already. I know in Texas we've had lots of close calls at the start of the school year with threats already, and it's heavy. There's a heaviness in the air here. I can't speak for the rest of the country, but I know it's pretty heavy here in Texas. And so I wanted us to take a minute and just find some calm, find some peace, and just ground ourselves. So I'm going to invite you to just make yourself comfortable, whether you're sitting in your favorite chair, whether you're standing. Just find a spot where you can feel at ease, where you can make yourself comfortable. I want you to take a few deep breaths. Breathe in through your nose and breathe out slowly through your mouth. Take another deep breath in and out. Release the tension in your body. If you have to squeeze your hands and feet, release them, wiggle them, do that. Then I'm going to invite you to close your eyes at this time. Don't forget to breathe in, breathe out. And as your eyes are closed, I want you to imagine a scene where you feel most at peace. This could be your favorite beach, your favorite coffee shop, favorite room in your house, your favorite park, your favorite dog park or pet park. Just imagine being there. Remember to breathe in, breathe out. Picture your special place as clearly and as vividly as you can. Sink into that place, sink into this moment. Imagine everything you can see, everything you can hear, everything you can smell, and everything you can feel. Breathe in, breathe out. See the ripples in the river. Hear the birds. Breathe in. Breathe out. Smell the crispness of the air or the salt in the air if you are a beach body like I am. Feel that warm or cool breeze rushing through your hair, brushing past your body. Sink into that place, sink into this moment. Breathe in, breathe out. Spend some time in this peaceful place. Remember to breathe in and out. In and out. Come back to me, slowly opening your eyes. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. I hope that gave you a little bit of calm, a little bit of peace and stillness as you carry on throughout this day of learning and just dealing with the weight of whatever it is that's surrounding you. All right, so let's jump right into the learning. So, first things first, let's take a minute, let's reflect on who we are as writers. What has your writing journey been like? How has schooling impacted this journey or influenced you as a writer? So, I'm gonna pause at that first chunk right there. It's kind of personal. Who are you as a writer? What has that journey been like for you? What does it look like for you? And what role has school played in a part of that journey? So, think about it, tweet about it, journal about it, whatever you want to do as you reflect. And I'm just going to share a little story. For me, in my family, my mom has always encouraged literacy. She always wanted us to read. She wanted to hear us talk about what we've read. She wanted us to be great listeners so we can take in information. And of course, she wanted us to be competent writers. It started small with grocery lists. It started with letters to family members, letters to family abroad. She encouraged us in having pen pals, right? My parents, they were a product of their generation where they were pulled from middle school to become laborers, workers, to take care of younger siblings, to contribute to the household. And so my mom had hopes of becoming a doctor, a nurse or a doctor, but she was really leaning towards becoming a nurse, especially working with babies. My dad never really shared what he wanted to do, but he wanted to do something along the lines of business. But at 8, my mom was removed from school, and quite similarly to my dad. And so they knew the opportunities that were taken away from them, and they wanted to make sure that we had those opportunities. So they invested a lot in books. They invested a lot in making sure that we were part of different processes that will allow us to write. And so it's always been a big part of my family. When we talk about schooling, for me, I would never forget there are 3 teachers that come to mind when I think of school impacting my journey or influencing me as a writer. My first experience was with a Peace Corps teacher, and her name was Miss Jackson. When Miss Jackson came in, I was in primary school. Not sure what the grade equivalent is. I was probably like 7, 8, I think. And she started this young authors program where she tapped into and developed this love for creative writing. We wrote poems, we wrote short stories, we wrote plays. She had us make illustrations. We put it together in a nice little book. And we had a young authors cafe where we presented to our family. People could come and look at our drawings and our books. And it was a really cool experience. And having her as a teacher, I felt like I was going to be an author one day, right? I'm going to be an author. I'm going to work for a cool traveling magazine or something along those lines. Fast forward to secondary school, high school. I'm still in the Caribbean. I had a teacher called Miss Sital, Indranani Sital. Never forget her. And it was quite the opposite. She was very stuck in her ways. It was her way or no way. There was no room for creativity. Grammar was more important than content. It was red ink all over your paper. If something was really bad, like she literally made fun of your work. And I hated writing in that moment. Nobody wants to see red ink for every missed comma or every period, every colon that should have been there when you had great content. She did not care about the content. She did not want to see your voice. And so I really fell out of love with writing, and I just did it because I had to, right? I was just, I would comply. If you want formula, here's your formula, and that was it. Complete opposite of Miss Jackson. Jumped to community college. Here I'm in upstate New York, Syracuse. Shout out to Onondaga Community College, one of the best community colleges around. Laurie Hall Anderson went there as well, and I'm sure she can tell you it was a great experience. I had a creative writing teacher, and uh, it was oh, it's losing me right now. My feminism. It was like feminism and literature class, and Dr. Christine Bromberger, she looked at some of my writing and she goes, "Although this is analytical, do you do creative writing?" I was like, "Yeah." She was like, "Well, bring me your stuff." And I brought her my things, and she was like, "My husband's a published poet. I want him to look at your work, give you some feedback because I think you have something there." And it was at that moment she immediately reminded me of Miss Jackson. I immediately fell in love with writing again. I felt I got the push to write more, whether it was like more academic, whether it was creative, whatever it was. I felt like I was seen, I was heard, and I had people supporting my journey, my progress, and giving me wholesome feedback to watch me become successful. And it was such a beautiful experience for me. And I wanted to transfer that to when I entered the classroom, which brings us to the next set of questions. What opportunities do you present to your learners to grow as writers? What factors shape or determine the type of instruction or writing experience you can provide in your classroom? So here I am, 2007, jumping into the classroom right out of college, ready to go. We're going to do creative writing. We're going to do all these fun stuff. And I was a reading teacher, reading intervention teacher. I'm like, we're going to write and we're going to read. And I get in there and I'm trying to do all these cool things. And I was told, wait a minute. No, 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 no. They have a test to take and we have a formula that we follow. And you need to follow this formula. You're going to teach them this, and at the time it was tax. You're going to teach them this one scripted essay, and because all the prompts are similar, right about the time you overcame a fear, right about the time you accomplish a dream, they're all similar. You're going to teach them this one story, or two stories at most, two narratives that they can write, and you're going to switch out that ending. And I was somewhat deflated because I felt that why, like, no wonder the kids were hesitant to write. No wonder writing scores were poor. It wasn't like, you can say like, yes, the test was poor quality, but at the same time, like, good writers are good writers are good writers. And so no wonder they felt like I saw that resistance to writing. It wasn't until I had a different principal sometime later, and she said, you need do what you need to do to get your kids to where they need to be. And once I had that support, I was able to jump into strategies, do different things with my students, and really help them fall in love with writing. They didn't all need to be published authors, right? But I wanted to see them be willing to engage in the process when needed to be engage, and love it and not hate it and not let it not make it feel like I'm literally like pulling teeth, right? And so that's just a little bit of my story and my experience with writing in the classroom. And now we're going to jump right in because I only have 45 minutes and I can really talk a lot, to the take five, the five strategies. Our first strategy: story cubes. Story cubes are fun. It's a really cool, engaging way to jump into fiction. So when I use story cubes in the classroom, I tend to use it for um, review purposes, like getting ready to review fiction. Sometimes I use it when we kickstart a fiction unit, so like I can either use it as a review at the end, especially around testing season, like a fun way to review fiction, or as an introduction to maybe like a novel study or some kind of short story unit along those lines. So it's really simple. So with story cubes, you can buy them off of Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, or some bookstores have them. They're little cubes. I think you get like 9 or 12 in a nice case. You can get plain ones with just basic characters and basic settings. You can get thematic ones. I am a big DC Marvel fan, and so I have like Batman story cubes. I also kind of like Scooby Doo, so I have Scooby Doo story cubes. and the kids love it. Adults who are into comics and into superheroes, they love it as well. The people who aren't into them, they get into them eventually by the end. And these story cubes, they have like characters, they have actions, they have some setting on there, so you get the full scope, like the basic skeleton that you need to write a piece of fiction. And it comes with an answer key or an image key, right? So the way I set this up is like everybody gets a cube, everybody gets a copy of the key. I allow them to, like spin or throw the cube twice so they can get two images, and they tend, typically you get a character and then you get an action or another character or setting. So like two things that you can play with, two things that you can work with. And then, of course, they look at the key to make sure they have the right character down, the right image, the right setting, whatever the case might be. And then we put that aside and we talk about the elements of fiction. I just, it's open sharing at this time, right? And typically I like to like record on a whiteboard or a piece of chart paper. So we're going to write a short piece of fiction. Let's talk about, like, when we hear fiction, what comes to mind? Capturing their answers. What are some elements? What are some things that you remember? And I always get the mountain, right? And I was like, well, what's in the mountain? What does the mountain help us understand? Introduction, what's in there, what builds to the top of the mountain, and we start listing the things out on the board. I only write the definitions of things that, like students or most of the learners can't remember. So I'll say thumbs up if you're going to remember, thumbs down, not so much. And I write it out in parentheses on the board. So we do all that. I capture all these elements on the board. The next step is to get the writers to talk about their feelings around fiction. Like, so like, what are your favorite genres? What are some of the like fun stories that you've read? They stuck with you. You always go back to them. Something I like to throw in there now, other than text, like shows and movies. What are some fun shows or movies that you like? And what genres do they fall under, right? And why do you like them? Why do you keep going back to, like, let's say you like fantasy. What about fantasy draws you to those books or draws you to those movies? And they talk about it, they share about it. Like, or if you have a favorite author, you keep hearing kids shout out some authors. Like, what about, like, why this author? Why do you love Tiffany Jackson so much? Oh, well, she does these amazing twists at the end. Plot twist at the end. Okay, cool. That's different. Let's note that. And so you capture all these things that they're sharing, get that out of the way, and review what you need to review. If there's some misinformation, you correct stuff that you need to correct then. And then, of course, you set a time frame that's comfortable for all writers. This activity works well. It can go like to 30 minutes if you wanted to, but 15 minutes is a really nice in and out experience, up the burger. And then allow writers to select their mode of writing. Like, do I want to type? Do I want to write on paper? I've had students ask to kind of make it like a graphic design, or not graphic design, like a comic strip. And I was like, all right, you only have 15 minutes and we'll have some elements, but if that's what you want to do, hey, go for it. And so just make them feel comfortable with how they're going to express themselves, right? How they want to share that narrative out there, or that piece of fiction out there. And so what tends to happen is, so we're going to have 15 minutes. I walk through the process. Hey, there are going to be some points where I'm going to stop and yell out an element or something I want you to include in your story. Don't overthink it. Just naturally work it in, right? Just work it in. Be fun, be spontaneous, whatever. And so at the 5-minute mark, I'll add an element. Like, all right, make sure and add onomatopoeia or add dialogue, right? Let's add some dialogue. And I like to encourage kids to use dialogue that is true to you. I was like, sometimes people tell you when you write in school, you need to only use academic language. We're writing a short story here. I need to see you, the author, come through. So if you write write it in a way that's comfortable for you. If you speak another language and the kind of dialogue you want to have, the vibe is not going to carry over in English, then do what you need to do to make that vibe carry over, right? If you want to, instead of saying what's up, if your character, oh, what's up? Hey, what's it going? You want to say, sac passe? write sac passe in there. You know what I mean? Add flavor to your writing. Um, and then they continue writing. At the 10-minute mark, throw in another element. Whether it's like putting a metaphor that lets your readers stop and pause, right? Throw that out there. Or if you want them to put a simile in there, something, something that's really simple, but can be cleverly worked in, add some spice to the writing. Again, at the 13-minute mark, you want to add another element of your choice. Maybe you want to like change, like maybe it you want them to have some kind of internal conflict, right? Or some kind of dilemma that the character faces. Throw that out there. Remind them at the 2-minute mark, because sometimes you're deep in the writing, you lose track of time and you're just going, 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 so they can kind of wrap it up. Let them know when they have 1 minute left. And then, I like to do a 10-minute count, like a 10-second countdown, so they can like hear it, scribble it down, and then drop their pens or get their hands off their keyboard. And so when it comes after they're done with their stories, and probably they should be at the front, like they have to understand that this is not for a grade, and this is just a fun way to experience fiction and review the elements of fiction and things like that, and just like just loosen their writing muscles, right? When it comes to sharing, sometimes there's different ways you can group this. You can group it based on the cubes that they had. You can group it, or you could just do something really simple as share with your partner, do a small group share. Or let me just say this up front, classroom culture is a very big thing. Sometimes you have that classroom environment where they understand it's a community, right? They understand that they feel safe, they feel heard, they feel seen. You guys like care about each other's social and emotional well-being. It's safe enough for them to challenge, ask questions, share their thoughts, laugh about mistakes, learn from mistakes without judgment. And if that's the kind of vibe that you have, then sometimes automatically sharing out whole class is your go-to because you have that setup. If you don't have that setup, then you might want to start working on that setup, or start with your small group or partner groups or your like partner shares, and then have them like, hey, did you hear a cool story? Who wants to read out loud? Whatever the case might be. But it's really important to let the kids know that when you're sharing, this is not an opportunity to offer feedback. This is not an opportunity to judge each other's work or defend your choice. Like, oh, disclaimer, this is really bad. None of that. We're just here to listen to the story that you've crafted in 15 minutes, using your cubes, whatever images you have from the cubes. And then you can have them discuss the different turns that their stories had. You can ask them to discuss like their decisions around conflict. Like I noticed we both had the same conflict, or the same image. How did you work? Like, why did you go that route instead of this way? Have them discuss their use of dialogue and the placement. So getting them to have like these informal, casual conversations about craft moves, right? Author decisions, the choices they made as writers. It takes it up a level than just, oh, let me read my story out loud. Asking them to talk about the different elements they included, why they worked it in that way. Everybody had to have like an onomatopoeia. Why this one? Why was that the placement? Everybody had to have like some kind of internal struggle in their main character. Why was that your go-to struggle? Like having those, but not, so having those questions about choices, seeing how things worked out. Some people wrote mysteries, some people might have wrote romance. Like, why was that your go-to? Is it because you only read, romance novels? So those conversations are great, fun conversations. You learn who they are as readers. You learn who they are as people. You get to see a different side of your students as writers when it's free, when it's not graded, and you kind of know what they're capable of. You can see some strengths, and then you zone in on those strengths, right? You zone in on it, because I feel like strength-based coaching really works in the classroom. When you acknowledge what a kid does well and you give them the opportunity to shine when that moment comes based on that strength, it builds their confidence. And so even when they get to a challenging point, they remember, this is only one thing that I need to work on, but I can do this thing really well. And so, like, yeah, so these stories, when they talk about it, it really transfers over into their reading. Because when they read fiction, they're having the same discussions. They're like, well, why did the author develop this character in this particular way? Why did the author use this type of dialogue in this particular era when we know that these people speak that way, or these people adhere to these social values? So when they get into that habit of analyzing what they've written and they have to like explain it and talk about the decisions, it transfers over into the reading. And this is one of my like favorite things to do with students, with adults. I even do this with my family. Like we have game night and we still recube it. All right. So strategy number two, takeaway number two, give me a word, let me drop a line. I called it that. It's probably not even the right name for the strategy, but I felt like that's what the process led me to. So here we are. Um, I experienced this when I was in college with my poetry professor, and then I experienced this again later at a Random House workshop with Warshawn Shire, the poet Warshawn Shire. Um, and it was amazing to see and feel the different vibes come in the room when we all had the same opening for the poem. And let me not spoil it. Let's just jump right in. So this is a great entry into poetry. The way we set this, the way I set this one up is uh, you can do again virtual setting, classroom setting. I'm just going to speak from the classroom setting. So it's easier to give kids sticky notes or two sticky notes, two, three sticky notes, and then you ask them to first, hey guys, so we're going to practice some poetry, but I want you to share your favorite words, right? So the first step is getting them to, what are some favorite words that you have them jot those down on their sticky notes. Like one of my favorite words, gallivanting. If you, I don't want to generalize, but if you have a Caribbean parent or African parent, and I put the whole continent there because every like I guarantee you, whether you're Kenyan, Ghanaian, Nigerian, like gallivanting, at some point you heard gallivanting in the streets, right? And so that's always one of my favorite words. My mom always said, like my older brother, he'll come home late. And where have you been? Oh, you like to just gallivant in the streets, huh? So he was outside gallivanting. And I'll never forget when my daughter and I started watching Miss Marvel, and she asked her mom to go to some party or whatever, and she was like, "Oh, Kamala, you want to go gallivanting?" I was like, "Oh my God, they say gallivanting too!" Like generational word, bonding word, gallivanting. So that's my favorite word, and that's the word I would put on the post-it note and put out in the atmosphere, gallivanting. So the kids would share their favorite words. Sometimes it's cool, like as they're putting their post-it note, like let them put their post-it notes up, return to their seats, and go through like, oh, whose favorite word is this? Abomination. That's different. Like, why is abomination your favorite word? You don't have to share if you don't want to, but like, you go through it and like if there's one that you like, you can move it to the middle and be like, oh, this is different. I need to add that to my, to my palette. Um, Next, you ask them to describe how they're feeling. So on your second sticky note, write down all the words that describe how you're currently feeling. Don't judge the words. Like sometimes teachers can be real nitpicky about like the hierarchy of words. Oh, instead of being tired, you can be drained or fatigued. It doesn't matter. Nobody asked you. We asked the writer, right? So have the kids write how they're feeling and have them come up, put it on the sticky note. And instead of asking them why they're feeling, just acknowledge the feelings in the room. Notice, oh, I see a lot of tired. Oh, yeah, it's been a rough school year so far. I know I'm tired. Sometimes when I'm tired, I like to do this breathing activity. I see a lot of bored. Oh, I wonder why we're bored. Don't worry, you won't be bored for long. We're going to do something really fun. Or I see a lot of like frustrated. And so like acknowledge the feelings in the room and share like how you deal with some of the feelings, especially like the stronger ones, like sad, tired, fatigued. Sometimes it's cool, like if you notice there's a lot of sad, tired, fatigue, to pause and do a grounding activity, kind of like what I did at the start of this, just to kind of get the kids to like feel calm, center themselves before they jump into the writing, before they jump into the activity. So again, we have your favorite words, mine is gallivanting, and then you have the words that you're feeling. I am tired. I am very fatigued right now. Um, and you have those there, right? If there is a strong feeling word or a very popular word that everyone's feeling, you can move that to the middle as well. Because the idea is you want to like use some of those words into what they're going to do. And so you just want to put those words front and center. Now, once you get the words out the way, quite similar to story cubes, you have to figure out a time frame that's ideal and comfortable for your writers. This could easily be 1 hour, but it's not gonna be 1 hour. So like with kids, maybe start like 20, 30 minutes and make sure they're comfortable with like the 20, 30 minute mark. With adults, you can do this in 45 minutes, really and truly, depending on the time frame you have, right? And so anyways, you set your time frame, same kind of thing. Allow them to find a mode of writing that's, or whatever platform they want to use, whether they're typing, handwriting, those are their options, and get them set up. Before they jump into that, you want them to have a share out. So, explain the process. We're going to write a poem. I'm going to give you a starting line. I'm going to share some words, throw in some words that you've used, like you shared with me, blah, 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 at different marks, different times throughout this 20-minute or 30-minute time frame. But before we get in, let's talk about lines that we've heard, right? What are some killer lines? What are some gems that you've heard, right? This could be openers in books, in essays, or it can just be a phrase or lines throughout a book, or any part in a book. It could be a poem. It could be a song lyric. It could be something in movies, right? Or you went to a performance, like a play, and you heard this one piece in a monologue, and it moved you. It could even be conversation, right? I never forget this line from my partner's dad, and he said to his family one day, they were having some conversation, and he said to the family, "I want y'all to bury me with my two hands outside my casket. I entered this world with nothing. I'm gonna leave the world with nothing." I was like, bars. That's a serious line right there, and I'll never forget it. I wrote it down when I heard it, and it's like in the back of my head. Bear me with my two hands outside the coffin, because I came in the world with nothing in my hands. I'm gonna leave the world with nothing in them. I was like, okay, I felt that. I heard that. So get them to share the lines that they're hearing. If there's one that really made the class pause, write that out there on the board. And then have them talk about poetry. What are their feelings around poetry? What are, like getting them to talk about character, like whether it's like form of poems that they're familiar with. Like always, like when kids say things like, "Oh, you got to rhyme." No, they all don't have to rhyme. So making sure that whatever, like structure that they've, that's been ingrained in their minds, like kind of remove that, right? Kind of let them know it's more free than just rhyming, and it looks, there's more freedom to craft it how you want it to craft. Like you might want to like have a quick example, like, think of this rap song, or think of this song, or think of this poem. It's all poetry. Or it might be a scene in a movie where this one character has a monologue, right? And like that was poetry. So really get them to step outside of some traditional view of poetry, so they can like feel less stressed about this entry. And so you give them, when it's time to write, so you've done this, you've addressed whatever misconceptions you needed to address. You let them know like what, like, hey, poetry can be what you make it, blah, blah, blah. You have your time frame. You have your words on the board. I encourage you, and I should have said this, before you enter this activity, you want to have at least 3 lines ready. For your kid, you must have the opening line, and you just want to have 3 backup lines depending on the vibe of the room, on the feelings the kids share or the adults share, and depending on the words that were shared, if people are tired or bored or whatever. Because ideally you might want to work in one of those words in one of those lines. So just have three working lines, but you must definitely have an opening line. So you give everybody the opening line and you're like, okay, so we're going to start our 20 minutes. We're going to start our poetry writing. Everyone will start with this line, and you write the line out, say it out to them, tell them to start writing. At the 5 minute mark, offer one of the words. It could be a mood word, or it could be a favorite word. At the 10-minute mark, drop another line. This could be one of your pre-scribed lines, or it could be a line that you've reworked using one of the words from favorites or from moods. At the 15-minute mark, you want to give them another line. At the 17-minute, another word. And again, always provide a wind down. So give them a 1 minute warning. And then, of course, I like to do my 10-second countdown, but you don't have to. So again, determine the best ways to have writers share out their work. When they do, once you determine how they're going to share, whether it's whole group, whether it's small group, pairs, whatever, let them know that they're listening for lines or phrases that they find clever, fun, memorable, or super fire. Like when you hear it, you're like, man, that is a line. Let me write that down. That's memorable. Clever. I like how you work that word in, because remember, you were throwing words at them and now they have to find a very clever, natural way to work it in, right? And so if a kid just cleverly works in some word you threw in, and it's moved, the group is moved, that's what you want them to acknowledge what they did well. Save these pieces of poetry. They can be later edited. You can use them as mentor texts in your classroom or for reading and analysis. It's really powerful when kids see their own work like solidified as a mentor text, or as something like, they tend to see the only things that we analyze are published pieces. And here we are analyzing my work. Am I at that level? So it does wonders for student confidence, classroom community. It's a really great activity. Our next one is color poems, and I want you to play with color poems, and I want you to share, like, here I am thinking like this is face to face, but I don't want you to do it. I want you to do this one with me, and I want you to like write a color poem, take a picture, share it with me on Twitter. It's fun. It's really simple. This one is a really great warm up. It's a really great icebreaker, as long as it connects with what you're doing. I hate having like random icebreakers. That's just me. But if it fits, this is a really easy one. Again, we live in color. We have mood rings that the colors change based on how we feel. We have our favorite colors. We have mood boards with the different color palettes. So like color is a very big part of life, right? And so color poems, they can be odes to a particular color. They can be an ode to a particular object of a particular color. It can look like lists. Make it whatever you want to make it, right? So like whatever type of poem or form of poem you've taught them in class. And if you want to like remind them of it, hey, we've learned X, Y, and Z. This could either be like your freestyle form, whatever you want to do, or you can like pick one of these forms that we've studied and use that for your color poetry. Or it could be as simple as you giving them frames. And I'll show you my example and you see how frames might be beneficial. So you want to have writers pick a color. You can have them pick their favorite color. You can have them pick a color that they hate. You might get some funny stuff if you give them a color that they despise. You can make it like a big surprise where they spin a color wheel. You can go to Walmart and raid their paint section, those paint strips, cut up the different colors, put it in a bag, have each kid pull from the bag. Ta-da, what's your color? That's what you're going to write about. You can make it as complicated as you want to, as fun as you want to, or as simple as you want to. The choice is yours. Once they've selected their color, give them about 5 minutes, maybe. Now looking at 8 minutes, I feel like 8 minutes is way too long. But you want to give them like a really quick moment to jot down everything, list everything they can associate with that particular color. Um, Once they have the color, once they understand whatever form that they're going to use, and again, once they have a mode that's comfortable, am I going to type? Am I going to write it out? Um, Set a comfortable time frame. 10 minutes is real easy for this one, but if you want to give 15, that would suffice as well. And so once they've written their poems, again, you can determine what's sharing out. Like this one is different, right? And the others, there was some interruptions, introductions. This one, they've listed their poems, they write, they have their 10 minutes, they write, and they're free. So here, once they're finished, you determine how you want to group them. I like doing color groups, like everybody who had like blue, teals, y'all go together, pink, rose, peaches go together, because it's fun. It's really interesting to hear the different takes on the different colors, right? Like if I had a yellow, I would automatically assume sunny, happy. You might be surprised to hear sad, mellow, right? So that's one way of grouping. When kids are reading their poems, typically colors go with your senses, your feelings. So that's what I tend to have them pay attention to. What senses are evoked, what feelings are evoked into that one. Again, these pieces can be fun entries into mood or tone discussions. So here's my example. I have Let's Try, and I'm trying to like race through this because I'm looking at my timer. And so for me, I'm going to go with the color mocha. I love mocha. And the things that come to mind when I think about mocha, my mom's eyes, my skin, lattes, and lipstick. I should have worn my favorite mocha lipstick. So yeah, those are the four things that come to mind when I think of one of my favorite colors, mocha. So I want you to do this too. I'm not gonna pause and let you do it, but like you can do it after, you can do it like while I'm talking through. So think about your favorite color and jot down some things that come to mind. Now, this is how I constructed my poem with those things that I shared from that list. Mocha is my skin, smooth and glistening, protected by shea butter. Mocha is a hot, steamy cafe latte. Mocha is my mom's eyes, shaded by thick, dark lashes, heavily curled and coated with mascara. Mocha is my favorite shade of lipstick, a deeper version of my skin, of me, telling the world I am fierce. And so if you notice, I had my color, I had the item, but I described the item. Like how does the item look? How does the item feel? Or so you can create a frame for your students. Your color is the object, and have some kind of description. You can add senses, or you can just again let them freestyle it. Something else I want to point out here is the importance of language, acknowledging the different dialects in your room, acknowledging the different mother tongues in your room. So for instance, if you have some Spanish speakers in your room and one of them is doing the color blue and there's something they want to describe, as you can say, guys, if you speak another language and you feel like flip-flopping how you use your mother tongue with English adds to the poem, do that. So if you're going to say like blue, you're just kind of like blue is this lake, whatever, like, blue is the ocean that stretches out, blah, 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 that I lose myself into every summer. And you read it back to yourself and you're like, I really don't like blue is so flat, so common. I want to say azul. Azul is the ocean that stretches past the horizon. I lose myself in it every summer. So allow kids to make those decisions. You want to see them in their writing, right? Hear that voice. My next, the fourth takeaway is memes. You can use memes and photos. The New York Times, they have a cool resource bank with a whole bunch of photos and memes and different images and different writing prompts. So again, this is just image inspired free writing. It can take any form, or it can be very like instructor driven. Like you can tell them like, oh, today we're going to write a short story. Today we're going to write poems, like whatever it is you want to do based on the image. Um, you can give some guidance to, here are some examples where it could be like, come up with a fun or clever captions for the image. It could be an image with people at coffee, like two people at a coffee shop, right? One's on the phone and the other is like, have them write a script about the conversation. Like, what is happening in this photo? It could be a photo capturing some kind of event, like some kind of current event, and or whatever. You can have the kids write a letter to the photographer about their connection to the photo. You can have the kids begin a story based on how one person in the image arrived at this moment or scene. So if they're looking at a person like drenched in sweat at the bus stop, have them write a story like, how did that person get to being drenched in sweat, hungover, like at the bus stop? So there are like a lot of cool things you can do. Again, it's like the same setup like the other entries. You want them to have a mode that they're comfortable with, pen, paper, set a comfortable time frame. I find these to be really, really nice warm-ups. For students, I find them to be really nice end of class wind down activities. And again, you can work this into your instruction as you see fit, or into your coaching with teachers as you see fit. Here's another thing that I want you to try before I end this. This is a beautiful image by a local Houston photographer, Bailey for Originals. The photo is called Moraine Lake Sunrise. And I always, when you use images, like model integrity, model citations, same thing for the next strategy I'm going to share. So when you use your photos, make sure like you're modeling, giving credit where credit is due, always citing, always acknowledging where you're getting information from. Students see that, it becomes an internalized practice, right? Cite folks, credit folks. And so I'm going to invite you to look at this beautiful image. Take a minute, take it in. This is Lake Moraine in Canada. And what you're going to do is you're going to finish. I'm going to give you the start to a very short narrative, and you're going to finish it. So I'm going to give you the opening, and I want you to let that opening, let your connection to this picture take you on that writing journey. And here is the opening. I want you to look at the photo, and I'm going to read that opening to you. I needed a crisp, clean stillness, not the robotic stillness offered by a meditation app, but one that allows my spirit to leave my body. And so I want you to finish that for me, whether it's like 2 more paragraphs, whether it's a whole page, finish it. And again, just like your color poem, I want you to tweet it out. Tag me at lit_Barker. I'm curious to see where this led you. And our final take 5, music. Let the music rock you. Again, due diligence. This is a lyric from the song Mellow Mood by Bob Marley. One of my favorite songs. Go Google it, buy it on iTunes. Really great. It's a great vibe, puts you in a good place. So music is a fun part of writing. You never know what you're going to get. You can start all sorts of ways. Again, this could be a really great warm-up for students. This could be a really great form of therapy, like playing music and allowing them to just leave it all out on the paper, especially if there was some big event at school, if there's some current event kids are all talking about. I like to use it to allow them to just get it out on the paper while the music is playing. And I came to, I'm sure this is not new, but what led me to using music, as to as an entry into writing, I noticed a lot of kids would ask, "Hey, can I listen to my music while I complete my independent practice?" I'm like, "Yeah, whatever. Um, if you need help, just holler," right? And so I'm like, okay, so they're listening to music and they're just calmly completing these tasks, whether it's like writing an essay, writing a short response, or a series of multiple choice things. I wonder what they would do when it's just free form, right? When it's like just no expectation, no grade, just do you on a piece of paper. And so I started with a song bank, right? First, I was like, tell me all your favorite songs, and then all the songs started looking, being it was pretty redundant. The first time I tried it, and I was like, all right, let me do a genre poll. What's your go-to genre, and what's a genre that you might be interested in, but you've never had the opportunity to pursue, or you don't know where to begin. And so I leaned more to that direction than to the song bank, because what started happening with the favorite song bank is like it was more singing along and less writing. And so it's like, let me do the genre poll. And so again, setting a time limit that is really comfortable for writers, whether it's 10 minutes, whether it's just 5 minutes, just one song, two songs. And then you can pose prompts or not pose prompts, right? Um, and just let students fall into whatever form of writing they want it to be. So whether it's if you play us like, hey, I just want you to listen to this song and just think about how you cope with how do you cope with rejection? Or how do you want to learn? Or can you cope with rejection? How do you cope with it? Or do you not know where to be? Like, just throwing that's a random prompt, right? You could throw it out there and let the kids go, right? And play a song or two. Or it could just be, I'm gonna play this song and I just want you to reflect on your day. And they can write there. Or it could be, I'm just gonna play this song because I noticed we all experienced this really crazy event today during assembly, and I know we want to talk about it, but I want to, instead of talking about it, because it might lead to arguments, or it might lead to very strong emotions that we're not yet ready to deal with. As a community, how about we just write about it? And we don't have to share it. You can just get it out on paper and you can take it with you or put it away, which at least you got it out, right? And so, depending on the reason for the writing, be very mindful of the music. Like if it's if there was just a school fight and you're allowing kids to like respond like, like, oh, I hated how if you want stood around and recorded, and there's, or I don't like the school policy or the punishment handed out because whatever it is they decide to do. I may not play hype music, right? Like I may be very mindful of when I ask the kids what gets them hype. I may not play, because some music will hype you up and not solve a situation, right? Or some songs will just hype you up and you're like, all right, clearly that didn't plan, that didn't work out as planned. So just be mindful of what you're asking kids to reflect on, put on the paper, and the music that you're playing. Most recently, I really love Bridgerton soundtrack. It's the you hear all these pop songs, but it's classical, and so it's a really nice spin for lots of writing activities, because you see people recognize, hey, I know this song, even if they watch Bridgerton or not. So it's like a really cool vibe because they're bob into it, but the pen's flowing, the ideas are coming. And so, yeah, so this is the end of my session. Like I said, it was just me sharing some entries into writing with you. I'm really looking forward to seeing your photo finishes. This one, going back here, I'm really excited about that one. I'm looking forward to that, seeing how you finished it, where this photo led you. I'm also looking forward to seeing your color poems. Again, you can find me on Twitter at lit_bark, BARK. Let me know if this was useful. Let me know if you already do all this and you've spiced it up a bit, you've jazzed it up a bit, so I can learn from you. If you planning on trying this with your class over, the course of the semester, let me know how they received it. Like, what was fun, what was not fun, because I'm always interested in seeing how this plays out in different learning environments, and just learning on different ways I can make, like enhance the activities, reduce the activity, or maybe one is not as great as I thought it was and I can drop it. So again, thank you for being here with me. Y'all stick around again for the rest of the sessions, the closing keynote. I know it's going to be fire. And you all have an amazing weekend and just finish the fall semester strong. Bye.